Hi everybody, and welcome to this brand new series, I Believe in Truth. We're really excited about this. We're going to be looking at what truth is and how do we communicate it in our world today. Did you know that Oxford Language's word of the year in 2016 was post-truth? Now that's defined in the Cambridge Dictionary as relating to a situation where people are more likely to accept an argument based on their emotions and beliefs than they are based on facts. Isn't that interesting that we live in a world where people are more likely to rely on their feelings, their emotions, their personal perspective on the world than they are on what the evidence and the facts are telling them. So how do we communicate truth in that kind of world where it feels like everything's got a little bit relative, a little bit subjective? This is my truth, but it may not be your truth. How do we respond to that kind of pervading attitude in society? And of course, as Christians, we believe that Jesus said some things which were absolute truth. He said things like in John chapter 14, verse 6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That's a very absolute statement. How do we respond to that? How do we communicate that in a world where truth has become very subjective? And Jesus said in John chapter 8, verse 32, then you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. Now to us, that's such a powerful statement. But again, how do we communicate that in a world where people maybe don't recognize truth based on evidence and upon facts? So we very much live in a world that's still asking the same question that Pontius Pilate asked 2,000 years ago. What is truth?
Questions come to mind as we talk about truth. What is truth? Why is truth important? How can we be confident in the truth? What we do know is that truth is an anchor. There's security in absolute truth. It's not changeable, it's not subjective. You know, our feelings, our circumstances, our emotions, the people around us are constantly changing. There's ebbs and flows and ups and downs. If you think about truth, what would a world be like if truth didn't exist? There's no moral standards or framework. How do we know that killing someone is wrong? Society will not work if we don't have, it can't be any laws if there isn't right or wrong. In 1 Peter 3 verse 15, it says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. So here we want to introduce a term called Christian Apologetics. Now, when you first hear the word apologetics, it can sound like someone's apologizing for the gospel. Like, oh, I'm so sorry about what we believe. I'm so sorry we believe this is the truth. But that's not what the word apologetics means. Basically, the word apologetics itself stems from a Greek word, apologia, which means simply an answer given in reply. So basically, apologetics is a reply. It's a defense for the faith. It's explaining what we believe. Christian apologetics then is the science of giving a defense of the Christian faith. To understand the importance of the study of Christian apologetics, imagine you're having a conversation and you don't have a reason or a defense for the gospel. So someone asks you, Matt, why do you believe in Jesus? And you just stare back blankly and shrug your shoulders. Is it going to inspire confidence? Are people going to listen? No, we need to be responding with a deep conviction that's both rational, it's well thought through, and experiential in the sense that we can share our testimony of why we know the gospel is true, not just on an intellectual level, but on a level in which it's transformed and changed our life.
That's Brilliant. And of course, this isn't a new concept. This is a very biblical concept. We can see it in the way that the early church communicated truth. I just love the example of the Apostle Paul. He had such an amazing testimony of how Jesus had impacted his life. He'd been completely, radically transformed on the road to Damascus, and he certainly wasn't afraid to share his testimony, and he did use that powerful personal experience. But he also was able to communicate truth in a very rational, very logical way as he defended the gospel, as he put forward evidence for Christ and his resurrection. So for example, in Acts chapter 18, it says that every Sabbath, Paul reasoned in the synagogue, trying to persuade Jews and Greeks, for he vigorously refuted his Jewish opponents in public debate, proving from the scriptures that Jesus was the Messiah. Another great example, when Paul is on Mars Hill in Athens in Acts chapter 17, he was reasoning with the Greek philosophers of the day. It would have been a great meeting place, a place where ideas were exchanged, different worldviews, different religions, different philosophies and ways of thinking about the world. But Paul didn't come in with blind argument. He didn't just use his personal testimony, but he was able to understand their beliefs and find a way to communicate truth within that context. He says in verse 22, "I notice that you are very religious in every way." And of course, they had a shrine to an unknown God. Paul used that point of connection in their culture to graciously and humbly, but also logically and in a reasoned way, put forward the truth about Jesus Christ.
And what's interesting about all of this is, as you will find, different people that you meet, different types of people, need a different reply. Different questions are asked. Sometimes they're asked on a more intellectual level, but sometimes they're asked on a more seeking level, on a level of searching for something more, something supernatural, something spiritual. And different answers require something different. Now, these days, spirituality is often a buzzword. It's the in word. And often even Christians like to say, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. But often we miss what's happening in society when people are talking about spirituality. These days, often spirituality is more linked to the New Age and Eastern kind of spirituality, and it's kind of a mix of things. It's very fluid. It's more based on feelings, experience. It's often mystical. It's about finding your truth or finding the truth within you, which actually has some occult kind of basis as well. And we need to learn to observe and listen to others around us. We can't communicate to people of different faiths, of different backgrounds, of different political ideas and social ideas if we don't understand those ideas. So part of apologetics is understanding what do these people believe and how can I communicate truth to them in a way and in a language that they might understand.
So this is why we're doing this series, because of this context, because of what's happening in the world around us, and because we want to be able to communicate truth effectively. We're doing this I Believe in Truth series. It's going to run throughout the year. We'll be looking at different topics, things like, do all roads lead to God? What about different religions? What about New Age practices and mysticism and Eastern religion, like Becky's just been mentioning? What about evidence? Is there really evidence for the Bible? Is there evidence for the Gospels? Is there evidence that Jesus really lived, that he rose from the dead? How do we respond when we get questions about these types of areas? What about challenging questions that people are wrestling with? Things like, why does a God of love allow suffering in this world? Have we got an answer to people for those types of questions? So we really believe this series is going to help encourage you, build you up, strengthen you in your understanding and confidence in the truth, and equip you to be able to communicate that more effectively to your friends and neighbours and people that you meet every day.
So through this series, we want to start some new discussions and learn more about truth and how we lovingly communicate that truth to others. In Colossians 4 verses 5 to 6, it says, "Be wise in the way you act towards outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation always be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everybody."
So it's going to be a great series. Make sure you watch this space for new videos posted on our website and on YouTube, and we look forward to taking this journey with you.